Yeah, when you hit a stronger enemy in the swamp area in East Hyrule, you'll have these to deal with. Not only will you have blue Octoroks to deal with, but also the flying enemies. Like, practically every enemy in this game is annoying. And this is coming from someone who likes the game. I don't think the game gets frustrating until you reach the Island Palace. And this is the ghost town, Kasuto, which has the same name as New Kasuto, the town we were in previously. I wish the previous town was called New Kasuto though, because having it be the exact same name is confusing. Thunder. It uses up a ridiculously large amount of magic. And for what? It doesn't even one-shot every enemy in the game. There's enemies in the final dungeon that are incredibly annoying, and you would love to be able to one-shot them with that spell. You know, you think it's the most powerful spell, that it'd be able to one-shot any enemy. But obviously it doesn't work on bosses. It doesn't work on bosses, and it doesn't work on all of the enemies. Well, it works on them, but it doesn't always one-shot them. And again, it uses up a ridiculously large amount of your magic meter. It feels like one of the most useless spells in the game. I mean, at least the spell, which is a really stupid and lazy name, by the way. At least using it gets you the magic key. And it's not unintuitive that you have to use it, because you're told that there's a secret at the end of town. And you must have gotten the spell for something, so I guess anyone would try it, eventually. What the spell does is that it turns certain enemies into bots. That's literally it. Makes them easier to deal with, sure, but it also means that there's a lot less experience points to gain, so it's not really worth it. And the spell takes up magic, and you don't want to waste magic on that. So, it doesn't really make things easier for you, I find. I love the atmosphere of the ghost town. I mean, I hate the fact that there's so many empty houses that waste your time, but it's just like, I love how it plays the indoors theme outdoors, and when you die, it actually plays a slightly altered version of the indoors theme that has some keys or whatever removed from it. And I forgot to read this sign. You can get hit while you're reading signs. That's cheap. Anyways, like, I love the creepy feeling that something as simple as playing the indoors theme outdoors can give to a dungeon, that can give to a ghost town. A ghost town dungeon would actually be a pretty cool and unique idea for a Zelda game. I don't know why they haven't tried that yet. There's been so many games. This dungeon. Yeah, this one's a labyrinth too. And again, there are some jumps where you don't necessarily have to use the jump spell. You can just run at them and jump with the right amount of momentum, and you'll land on it anyways. That self sucks. But sometimes you just use the jump spell anyways. Yeah, this dungeon is annoying because, again, copy and paste environments. It's easy to get lost, and there's no map at all. I can't stress enough how annoying that is. And this dungeon can also get pretty cheap as well. I haven't really discussed the story of the game yet. If you look at the manual for the game, you'll notice that the story is a lot more deep than the story of Zelda 1, which was basically summarized as Ganon kidnaps the princess, and you have to beat all the dungeons to win. That's basically it. In Zelda 2, you have to, in Zelda 2, basically, the story is that there's a sleeping Zelda. The sleeping Zelda that you see in North Castle at the very start of the game, she's not the same Zelda as in Zelda 1 that you rescued. She's from a previous time, and she's asleep because a wizard who was working for her father actually cursed her as revenge for not telling her where the Triforce of Courage is. Because the Triforce of Courage was introduced in this game. That's what this quest is about. Link wants to defeat all of the bosses of all the dungeons, and that way he can get all of the keys. No, he can get all of the crystals. Like, this game is kind of weird because you start out with 6 crystals, and you place those crystals into the end of the dungeons. It's not like every other Zelda game, where you beat a dungeon in order to get a magical artifact, and that's how you progress through the game. This game does the reverse, which is pretty unique. Like, I like how unique this game is, at least for a Zelda title anyway. And I hate this room so much. And again, his projectiles can go through the blocks. When the bubbles are bouncing between the blocks in this tight, small area, it's really cheap. I don't know how you're supposed to not die there. You probably noticed that there's a file called Lee that I started out with, and that's not my file. I got my Wii used, so whoever managed to beat this game losing so little lives, that guy's awesome. Although he had a sword next to his file name, and that indicates that he's in the second quest. And the second quest isn't nearly as tedious as in Zelda 2, as in Zelda 1. Because in Zelda 1 there were completely different dungeon designs, and it had an enemy that forced you to waste a potion or go all the way out to the overworld to be able to attack again, which destroyed it. In Zelda 2's second quest, well, I won't ruin the surprise, I'll be talking about it later. But basically, it's not nearly as impressive that he has a lot less lives lost in the second quest. I'll say that much. This room, you're gonna have to deal with this room a lot if you keep on falling through the intangible floors. Just use the reflect spell and kill the Wizrobes. Don't not kill the Wizrobes, because you're probably gonna have to be dealing with them a lot, and you're gonna sustain more damage avoiding them than just killing them. You can actually get up there without using the jump spell, but it's hard. Jump at the 3rd brick. Like, jump at the 3rd brick past that statue, and then past that statue. Just cast the jump spell, and don't jump instantly. Like, don't jump right away, because then you'll fall. And, it's like they knew that you were going to do that. They knew you were going to try and cheese past that with fairy spell. So they intentionally put a line of blocks there to prevent you from going any further. I guess it was smart, but it's still pretty trollish. Like, I had to do so much backtracking. I had to constantly go through the same rooms I'd already gone over and over again, dealing with the same enemies every time. And it was partially my fault for not thinking to kill the enemies, but still. Oh, there's a heart container. And I hate it when secret areas aren't obvious. Like, I prefer it when secret areas are lone trees in the overworld, so it's more obvious what they are. Like, I hate it when secret areas are just, they look like just any random part of the overworld, and so you need a guide to find out where they are. That's not good game design. This dungeon is annoying. You can land on a statue to the right of the first instance of the chasm, and you can get a red potion from stabbing it. I thought that I had reached the boss of this dungeon, and that's why I exited out of the dungeon and started progressing with it more. But unfortunately, I was wrong, and I basically wasted a whole bunch of time and had to come back to this room. This is the worst room in the entire game. This is the Castlevania room. Like there's constantly dragon heads going all over the place, and they'll knock you into the pit, and there's nothing you can do about it. And there's a very slight delay between when you exit the item menu and when you try to use a spell. And it's because of that you can't always use the fairy to save yourself from being knocked into the pit. And it's annoying how you have to specifically select an item you have to specifically select a spell on the item menu before you can use it. So, that room is so annoying. And I played Castlevania music there because Castlevania, one of its most well-known problems is enemies that knock you into pits because of all the knockback that you suffer. It's also got problems because you have to hold up and move forward to walk upstairs, and I came there without any magic at all. So, and I got a game over there too, so I had to go back. I had to go all the way through that room all over again. I'm tempted to call this the worst dungeon in the game, but at least it doesn't have the worst enemies in the game. And it's annoying how when you cast fairy, you have to go all the way back, because again, they knew that you might cheese past this room with a fairy spell, so they intentionally put blocks there at the very right side of the room to prevent you from cheesing past it. It's like, really? I know it's a platforming challenge, and they might not want you to skip it, but still, it's a very cheap challenge, and I don't see why you shouldn't be rewarded for being ingenuous enough to think that maybe I should use this spell that I got in a way that's advantageous to me, you know? But I stopped talking about the story. Basically, the Sleeping Zelda, her brother was the owner of the Triforce of Courage. Like, the Triforce of Courage, its crest appeared on his hand, and that blessed him. And the wizard knew that he... basically, the Triforce is split into 3 pieces, and depending on which quality you agree with the most, or have the most, courage, wisdom, or power, that's the part of the Triforce that is you're probably going to have. So the wizard questioned the princess, and she wouldn't tell him where the Triforce of Wisdom was. No, she wouldn't tell him where the Triforce of Courage was. So he cursed her with a sleeping spell. And oh yeah, the prince. I don't really remember what the prince did. I don't really remember the story all that well, to be honest. I know that Link was approached by Impa on his 16th birthday, and because he had the crest of the Triforce of Courage, because he's a hero, he was able to read these ancient Hylian texts that talked about the Triforce of Courage and the Great Temple and the Sleeping Zelda story. And because of that, and he was sent on this quest because of that. All I'm thinking is, like, I really hate this boss, you know? I hate how I had to go all the way back to it because I left thinking that it was the boss. I thought, you know, I know there's no curtains there to indicate that it's a boss room, but I just assumed that they were going to do something different. And there's 2 bosses in this dungeon, and they're both the exact same boss. And I just hate this boss so much because this part, the beginning part where you're trying to get him off his horse, is really boring. And you can't. This guy is completely immune to the thunder spell, even though he's supposed to be just a regular blue dark nut. And these enemies are annoying enough. And you know what the worst part about the boss fights in Zelda 2 is? They can go past the left or right edge of the screen, and then you can't attack them, and yet they can attack you. And you have to move to the right in order to coax them to go towards you and be hittable again. But he was firing projectiles, and because I was moving to the right to make him go to the right, I got hit by them because I wasn't facing them, couldn't block them. I can't stress enough how cheap it is that bosses can go past the left or right side of the screen and become out of sight and invincible. Why didn't they program invisible walls? I mean, there are invisible walls affecting Link, so why can the bosses pass by those boundaries? Ugh. I just hate the bosses in the game for that one fact alone. The story in this game, it sounds all deep and stuff, but it's really just adding more backstory to make it seem less like beat all the dungeons to beat Ganon. Basically, the enemies in the game are trying to kill Link so that they can get his blood as a sacrifice to revive Ganon. And no other Zelda game mentions the ability of Link's blood to revive Ganon. So it was just a weird thing that Zelda 2 introduced. And I see a plot hole where, okay, Sleeping Zelda wakes up, and then what? Right? I mean, Zelda, as we know her from Zelda 1, is awake. Like, she's the heir to the kingdom. So, now that the Sleeping Zelda is awake, is she gonna inherit the kingdom? Or is Zelda from Zelda 1? Is she gonna be completely passed over for the throne because she missed her chance? Well, no, because I think how it works in royalty is that if there's a prince and a princess, and if there's a prince, then it's the prince who becomes the king, and the princess gets nothing. So because Sleeping Zelda had a brother, she probably wasn't expecting to inherit the kingdom anyways. I don't know. I don't really like the story for this game, and it's easy to forget. See you later.